Hi, everybody. It's Tara Boothby from Sojourn Psychology, and I am here with one of my American colleagues, actually. This is Shane Birkel, and he is in New Hampshire. Now, Shane and I just run in some similar circles. He does a lot of really, really cool things for the professional community, which I think it would be neat for some of you guys to hear about and see if some of these things might be interesting for some of you podcast followers. So Shane, how would you describe who you are in the professional community and your sort of community of therapy and the world around you?
Yeah. First, hi Tara. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm excited to talk to you. And yeah, I have a podcast that's all about the practice of couples therapy. That I interview therapists about how to do good work with people in relationships. And so I do a lot of training with couples therapists and education of couples therapists, but I also have a practice here in New Hampshire where I work primarily with couples and relationships.
Right. Yeah, and you're a busy guy. Like, you are really encouraging. I think that you do really support the professional community, which is so lovely. For you, Shane, what is the name of your podcast, and how would the general public find that interesting, or how might they access that?
Yeah, it's called the Couples Therapist Couch. And you can find it anywhere that you listen to podcasts, like Apple or Spotify, or I don't know where else people listen to podcasts. But yeah, so you just look up the Couples Therapist Couch. And, people might find it is geared towards therapists, but there are a lot of episodes that people might find interesting as far as understanding things that make relationships work. I had a woman on there talking about how to make a good apology, people talking about if you have differing levels of sexual desire. There's all kinds of topics like that the general public might find interesting as well.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that when we get exposed to trainers or theorists, and they're interviewed by somebody who is knowledgeable in the field, it really does give us a different sense into what we're talking about. Like, even an apology comes alive in a different way.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
yeah.
definitely.
And then you interview so many different types of clinicians. What is your modality? What type of therapist are you, Shane?
Yeah, I am certified in relational life therapy, which is a model that Terry Real started. And so, yeah, and I am really interested in, emotionally focused therapy, Gottman. That's why I have all those people on the show. And I like to give everyone a voice, and I like to be sort of unbiased in my way of interviewing and being open to everybody. But I do think that I am especially fond of relational life therapy. I really like it because we think a lot about helping people connect to their emotions and what I would call shame, that we all have some sort of shame that we carry with us from childhood that seeps out in our life in different ways, that therapists do a really good job of working with that. I think most therapists do, and we love up that little child part of you that just wants to be held. And therapists can do that with people really well. What relational life therapy brings into it is also the opposite of shame, which is grandiosity. Because when we're working with couples, we often see a lot of grandiose behaviors, which are boundary violations, which are harsh ways of communicating. And so I'm going to love up the shame, but I'm also going to not stay quiet about those kind of grandiose behaviors that I see coming into the office when I'm working with people.
Wow, that's nice. So even that, the boundary of taking charge when the critical or the contemptuous type stuff starts to show up. That's really
Yeah.
cool. What do you think if you were going to give a little bit of advice or motivation to all of the couples right now who are locked down and we're sick of our partner? What do you think, Shane? What should we be doing to take care of ourselves?
Yeah, and that's a great question. And I think, just to continue with this idea, that most of us in our relationships with our partner just want to feel loved and accepted and understood. And when we get into a situation where we're feeling blamed or criticized, I start feeling, my initial feeling, even if I don't recognize it, is often fear or loneliness, that my partner isn't going to love me or something like that. And that's going into my own vulnerability, which feels scary. And for me, I tolerate that for about 2 seconds, and it feels so vulnerable that I go up into the grandiosity, which is what I call it. And so instead of sitting with those difficult emotions of fear and vulnerability and loneliness, I started going on the attack, and I become blaming, and I become critical. And so, you know, just as a little thing that anyone could do as a takeaway from here is when you're feeling attacked by your partner, or you're feeling stress in the situation with your partner, that what you want to do is pause and take a deep breath and allow yourself to feel some of those emotions coming up before you go into your head and go into anger and go into judgment and criticism and blame. You know, oftentimes it's great to slow down and take a minute and think about breathing into your body and being more present with those difficult emotions. It's not fun. And in our society, you know, we're sort of encouraged not to do that. And so, but in your relationship, if you're with someone who you can trust, who's a safe partner, it's worth it. It's going to improve the relationship and make it better. It's not easy at all, but it's definitely worthwhile. And it helps us to grow in our ability to show up in the world in a way that's more confident and more, what we call, you know, in your functional adult self.
Right. That's really lovely. And I think that that is just really good advice. Even if you slow down and you have to take more than one pass at it. So we can slow down, we can slow down again, we can slow down again. I like how you speak about this, Shane, and I think it is important to think about those big behaviors, because they need a lot of credit and they need a lot of support in just in conflict. So
yeah, that's
yeah.
a great point, that acceptance for ourselves, that when we go up into that, so we don't judge ourselves and blame ourselves and criticize ourselves, like that harshness between our own ears that often happens. What we want to do is be accepting, like, of course I'm getting angry for some reason. Of course I'm feeling like I want to blame my partner, and still breathing into that, trying not to act on it, but not going into judgment on ourselves as well.
Yeah. Yeah, because the behavior is what we judge in ourselves or in our person. That's the thing that gets us on the radar or on the bullseye. Yeah, so it's valuable, as valuable as shame or shame and shame,
Yeah.
I guess.
Thank you. Yes.
We're all valuable. So, yeah, okay. Well, thank you so much. And any final sort of words before we wind things down?
There's a great audio program. It's called Fierce Intimacy, that is by Terry Real. If anyone's interested in learning more, I think that would be a great thing to listen to, especially if you and your partner want to listen to something together. It's a really great organized program that people can listen to.
Perfect. Okay, and I will link all that stuff below in the description of this video. So thanks so much, Shane, and maybe we'll do this again sometime, and just keep up all the great work that you're doing. Thank you.
Thanks, Tara. I appreciate it. Thanks.
You're welcome.